I have to say. Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi!
My name is Elliot Payne. I am the secretary of the Tennessee Tech Chapter of Students for a Democratic Society. We are co-sponsoring this event with College Democrats, and the event is called, as you may know, Aim High, which is a discussion of contemporary Indigenous issues. I'm going to pass things off over to Dr. Troy Smith, who is professor of Native American Studies here at Tennessee Tech University. So.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We're very happy to see you here. We're going to have, I think, a very good discussion. But first, I wanted to do two things. I wanted to thank, in addition to those two wonderful student organizations, I wanted to thank Center Stage and the College of Arts and Sciences for helping to fund this evening to make it possible. And I also wanted to mention, I just found this out today. I bet Dr. Roberts already knew it, I guarantee it. Today is the 79th anniversary of the raising of the American flag on Mount Suribachi at Iwo Jima. So let's lift the spirit of Ira Hayes and all other Indigenous veterans through the years. So we have with us most of the members of the board of the Tanasi chapter, that's Tennessee and Western North Carolina, of AIM Indian Territory, AIM American Indian Movement. And I am not going to do much more talking. I'm just going to hand it off to them.
That's why you were doing so good.
Sorry.
Harito, Chimatukma. Ochifoya Ihoyoka, and Achata Ohoyo, Tosca. Until 1978, it was illegal for my people to even use those words to introduce ourselves. But I wanted to tell you, I want to welcome you first and foremost, and thank you so much for being here. My name legally is Amy. I go by Haloka. It's Choctaw. It means beloved as well. I'm a United States Army veteran. I was raised in Tennessee. I was actually born in Gallatin, raised in Lafayette. I am as local Upper Cumberland as you're going to get. Been living up in the mountains for the past few years, so I'm getting a little more bumpkinny. Forgive me. But I wanted to say this meeting, this town hall, has been the first in 6 years to come to this point. It all started because I made a phone call to Frank Caro with the Grand Governing Council in Minneapolis to get some help and assistance down here. And it's been a long, crazy road. I was concerned about an ag code violation with Mount Bottom in 2016, and 50 colleges were going to go out and do a LiDAR scan for anything that they've had picked over in the past 200 years. I think that's enough time, right? 200 years is good enough? So I was like, yeah, those are my ancestors, literally. I'm Choctaw and Chickasaw, and those are my people. And so I was like, I think we're going to find out. But long story short, WhiteEagle was instrumental in this. He was the spiritual leader for AIM Oklahoma. He also lived here in Nashville. Some of you may have remembered when Nashville did the Indigenous Peoples Day celebration, and we now do that every year in Nashville. That was us. So it's small but very big victories for us and the Native people here in Tennessee. But yeah, I wanted to also say that today is the 130th birthday of my grandmother, who is an original enrollee of the Choctaw Nation. She was Minnie Biscuit. And you can look her up on Google, she's got a pretty cool story. So, but anyway, speaking of food, I think I'm going to pass it over to Jody.
Bojo Nikanek, Jody Gzhadawsot and Dejankos, Ottawa, Ojibwe, Bodhiwatamie Dow, Mayan Dodom. Hello, I hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Jody, one who helps children. I am Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Citizen Band Potawatomi enrolled, Loon Clan. And I'm just getting reacquainted with our language because it was illegal for, like Amy said, for us to speak our own language until I was 6 years old. So learning, this is my son over there. He's picking up on it a little bit better than I am. But then he's learning Spanish in school too, so he's always mixing that up. So anyway, my people are from Indiana, Michigan, South Bend area, all around Lake Michigan. Our reservation, though, we were moved to Kansas and then again to Oklahoma and Shawnee. I grew up in Salt Lake City, and now we're in Tennessee. But I work with the Nottowaseppi Potawatomi Band in Michigan with the Food Sovereignty Department. That's kind of my baby, I guess. I have a social media platform where I teach Indigenous recipes, decolonizing your pantries, getting rid of wheat and dairy, alcohol, and going back to our Indigenous foods. So that's kind of my area of expertise. And I teach that on the reservation as well. So.
Sayota Magad, Jeff Hobbs, My name is Jeff Hobbs, Cherokee Nation, and I'm a singer, drummer. I perform at powwows all around the United States, primarily in the Southeast and Oklahoma. And I get to interact with a lot of people along the way. My primary area of study has been history, and I do a lot of work teaching people about the interaction of African Americans and Native Americans, because it's something that you don't actually hear about that often. So I like to educate people as to how things have gone over the years. Within the Cherokee Nation, we have a group of people called the Freedmen. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them or not, but they are the descendants of the slaves of the Cherokee Nation, members of the Cherokee Nation. A lot of people do not realize that Native Americans held slaves as well. But I do a lot of lecturing. I was just here 2 weeks ago. The school had me over to do a program on the Cherokee Freedmen. We had a good turnout, and I'm happy to be here again. So I hope that you guys have some good questions for us tonight, and we can interact with each other and learn something from each other, because that's what we're here for. Wadon.
Hey Sherry, my name's Tim Clifft. I'm one of the newer members of this chapter. I'm a northern grass dancer. Basically, think of a big giant car wash as a dancer. We're very outgoing people, as you know, it's really quick. I've been a dancer since I was an 11-year-old, and I'm a little bit pretty good ways from 11 right now. I work with a lot of our youth, teaching them dance moves, teaching them dances, and teaching them things that have been outlawed for many years, and people are starting to lose in a lot of different nations. Even if it's a style of dance that I don't do personally, I will connect people with their people when they don't know what nation they're from. My nation, I'm Muscogee Creek. We're originally from the Georgia area. Then we were asked to leave there, and we were put in Oklahoma. And we're over near a little bit kind of part of Tulsa and around that area. A lot of really good people go to the casino, a lot of fun. People that watch Reservation Dogs, that's our res. Little shout out to that. Yeah, it's like thing I do here with us is like I want to promote and loving and knowledge of our Native people, because there's so many people with questions, and I'm the person that you can come to at a powwow and go, hey, I don't understand this, and I'll stop what I'm doing and talk to you about it, because it's like, that's what I'm there for. That's what my ancestors have given me the energy and the love to do. So, questions tonight, there's no dumb question, unless I do my own stunts, and I do my own stunts. So, my career, I'm an arborist, professional tree hugger. I take care of our trees because they take care of us. And like today, I took down a sick tree, and I thanked it for what it's done for each and every one, the oxygen in our lungs and things like that. So, any questions about that? So, We'll pass it on next one. Mado.
First, I want to give a land acknowledgement before I start my piece. I want to acknowledge that this land we're all walking on, all over this continent, has been stolen land, and that the land we're currently walking on in this area is the Yuchi, the Akne Yuchana, the Shawneese people's land. My name is Sayota Knight, and I am a resident here in Putnam County. Quite a few of you already know me, but I'm honored to be here today and share the stage with those beautiful people and with you beautiful people out there. As far as my contributions to this panel, as in regard to living here as long as I have, my insight as a parent and struggling to get racist mascots changed all over this nation, much less this little county, has been quite a struggle. But through education, I do pieces like Jeff, I give lectures, I help host events here on campus to help bridge gaps and correct history or the omission of true history in this nation. And want to also state that our people will, even though we've been genocided, we're still here. And for me to tell you that with all the things bad happening in this nation, to not give up. We've not given up, we're still here, and we need your help to continue our ways, but also to grow together as people, as human beings, because ultimately that's what we are. So I'm a musician, I'm an author, and I'm a graduate of Tennessee Tech, and I'm proud to be here with you people today. Thank you for your time.
I'm Kent Mattena. I'm a student at Westmoreland High School, so I'm a bit farther away from here. I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. That's my mom. I'm a little bit newer, so I don't know much yet.
You're in
Training.
He is our youth representative, and he's definitely our go-to lawyer for the kids, so we know that.
I thought that was something from Mark because I missed my mark. All right, well, what a wonderful group of people we got here representing 5 different nations. And this is, one of the reasons we want to do this is because it is a wonderful opportunity for you, for the community here, to ask questions. So don't be shy about asking questions, to learn, because I think that unfortunately, culturally, the majority in this country tends to speak for Native people or about Native people. When there are Native people right here, we could be asking. So that being said, we've got our microphone guy on hand here. I hope that you'll help us keep this rolling by asking some questions. Who's going to go first? No pressure.
So here's a question for Mr. Arborist. Do you know anything about the American chestnut tree and its status now, things that could be, is there any progress with it? As in bringing it back? It is okay if you don't know. That's may not
I'm
be
trying
right.
to think of what attacked the chestnut.
It was the blight.
It was a fungal blight.
Yeah.
Fungal blight. In that case,
Microphone.
my brain's working too hard right now. There's a blight.
And listen, it's totally cool. I don't mean to catch you if there's a specific question.
On that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's something that's taking the tree out, if it's a blight, that would make it Yeah, I
Yeah,
can.
but just, it did it about maybe 120 years ago. The chestnut tree gave like 5,000 pounds of fruit or nuts, whatever you call it, every year. And the bears and everything have had, gigantic problems since then. But
I was just going to say that after this is over, we have a climate geologist in the fourth row back. So that's
I would like to chit chat with you as well on that.
our climate geologist.
I wasn't talking Scottish, I had a question. I can just ask it if you want.
Is everybody here okay?
So I guess my question is, I think for myself a bias is that I think of Indigenous people as a monolith, and I'm realizing that there are 5 different tribes up there, and I guess I'd ask you, like, what is an aspect of your heritage or your culture that your tribe is known for, or that you love, that like you really appreciate? If it's dance, if it's food, like what's an aspect of that is really unique to your tribe or your people?
I'll go first to that one. As an enrolled citizen of the Choctaw Nation, 100 years ago. Here it comes. I'm loud, but I'm not that. So, as 100 years ago, we celebrated this not too long ago. It was before we had citizenship as Americans, actually. World War I, the United States Armed Forces needed code talkers, and my people were the first to go. There's been, I think, 32 some other nations that did code talking, but the Choctaw sent us. So that's our big, huge claim to fame.
For my people, the Potawatomi, we're grouped together with the Anishinaabe, which is a confederacy of the Ottawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi. It's Algonquin-speaking language. So we all spoke our language when we introduced ourselves. We all have different languages in different language groups. What my people are known for is sugar, maple sugar to be specific. In fact, we're tapping right now, and we have this huge ceremony, and we all get together, and of course we eat. Everything is based around food, and I think for most tribes, is food. It's all the food. But the Anishinaabe, it's more about, we have a sweet tooth. Whenever we trade, it's always in maple sugar, maple syrup, maple vinegar, and sometimes honey. Also wild rice monomen, it grows on the lakes in Michigan, so we're known for monomen too, the wild rice. That's all I can think of.
For us, of course, the Cherokee people are known for the Trail of Tears, which we were not the only group that was relocated to Oklahoma. But we, for some reason, got, that's what everybody thinks of when you mention the Trail of Tears, they think of the Cherokee people. We're also known for the language, Sequoia, who invented the Cherokee syllabary. It's not like an alphabet. For us, each symbol equals a sound. Okay, so it's not a true alphabet, although many people call it that. It's actually a syllabary. But those are 2 of the things that my people are known for, and also for being in this area of the country, Tennessee, East Tennessee, the Southeast. And we are known for everybody having a great, great Cherokee grandmother. You're well known for that.
Nobody's taking my answer. In Muskogee, we're known for eating. We love food. We're wicked good farmers. Is it starting down in like Georgia and all that stuff? It's like growing stuff. We're mound builders. We live in the earth. We're really, really connected to the earth. Not that all the nations represented here are kind of like, well, I'm okay with the earth. And our ceremonies, like I'm a grass dancer. That is not anywhere close to a Muskogee dance by any means. We've got stump dance. And if you see a stomp dance, you're like, okay. And they go all night. It's like, Usually we'll go to a powwow or a rodeo or something like that. Then everybody's like, hey, we'll meet up at so-and-so pond. And our dance circles are that are 200 plus years old. They're out in the middle of the sticks, nowhere in Oklahoma because they were hidden. Illegal dancing. And I'm an illegal dancer. But it's like, you go to a stomp dance, it's like, you've got your circle, we dance with that, and then we eat. Once again, everything's around food and family. We're really, really big on our family, our extended family. Because like, personally, my blood is not Muskogee. My brother I grew up with from kindergarten, his family's Muskogee, and they took me in. I'm Chickasaw. I grew up with that. I know quite a bit about my Chickasaw family and nation, but Muskogee speak for me, and they won't let me claim Chickasaw. But it's like, as I said, we really love to eat. We love to feed people. You come to our house, you're going to eat. So I'm also a high energy person. Burn it off, it'll slow down, I get round. So.
To try to, I guess, pinpoint your question, I just want to repeat it. You asking what we feel represents.
Either like, what is an aspect that your group is known for, or what is something that like maybe makes you happy,
Sure.
to your, so it's not some monolith, so we don't think of every Indigenous person as like this.
Right.
What is it for you?
Yeah, good question. So I'm in Nde, or what people know as the Apaches, and specifically the Cherokee. So the usual response I get is like, oh, they're the fighters. Yeah. But that's cool, we're known for that, but we're also much more. And I want to put out that, a recognition to all the Indigenous people on here. We're great scientists, we're great agriculturalists, we're great philosophers, mathematicians, so on and so forth, medicine men, women. And so, but the Apaches, the Nde, they were known for their great endurance for the elements out west. And so, I don't know how many people have actually been out west. I'm sure quite a few of you have, but it's hard to find water out there. And good clean water now, especially. So our people, I'm proud to say that, we have great endurance skills, fighting skills, and that's what we're kind of known for. But a lot of people know we're great runners, and we're great at making our habitat work for us, making everything work for us, and that's most Indigenous people, from all the way down to South America, all the way up to Canada and Alaska. So I'm proud of that as a people, as all Indigenous people, how we were able to live with Mother Earth and not destroy it while we live with it to a point where it's not livable for 7 generations afterwards, right? So that's kind of where I'm really proud of our people, is that we've been able to stay here this long, even through all the hardships that were imposed on us through starvations and murders and all the other bad things, and the stereotypes. Now, with the Apache, the stereotypes for us, is because we're the warlike people, the United States military felt it was an honor to name a helicopter after us and things like that, right? Which, I look back and I think, well, okay, we're being used to mass murder other people, so I don't know how to take that as an honor, but for those who are in the military, and I have relatives that also have been in the military, and I'm proud of the fact that most Indigenous people per capita or per percent ratio, the majority of our people have served in the military and fought for this nation that doesn't want us to exist, which is kind of ironic in a way. But I'm proud of the fact that we have been able to contribute to this nation we call the United States, and hopefully make it a better place for our children. So that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Good question.
So I'm also a Anishinaabe. We're also known as the water people. We come from the Great Lakes, places like that, so we're very common fishermen and craftsmen using one of their jawbones as needles for tattoos, stuff like that.
Thank you.
That was an excellent question. Keep on coming.
I would like to say, well, most of the things you hear when we refer to our people, I would like to let you know that, like, for instance, with the Cherokee, we do not call ourselves by that name, okay? We have names, we are, I mean, we are the principal people, okay? So the names that you're used to hearing are usually not the names that we call ourselves. Those were names that were put on us by neighboring groups of people. There is no word for Cherokee in the Cherokee language. It doesn't mean anything. It has no meaning. It's I think it's a Creek word that means they come from caves. So it has nothing to do with our culture or anything like that. We have our own names for ourselves, and everybody up here is the same as far as that goes.
Yeah, so Potawatomi is an English term, but the technical correct term for us is Bodewatomi. And Anishinaabe just means the people. So.
The Choctaw Nation is actually a conglomerate of several smaller tribes. We were known not so much as clans, but districts. And the district that I come from ancestrally is Hanale, which is now around the Florence, Alabama area. But to group us all as the tribe per se, we would be the Hopakata, the river people.
I think we had, wow, that question was so good, it went 2 rounds. We got somebody over there.
All right. We'll get you
Oh, yeah, working that way.
Can you hear me? I know the drums are not just music for youth, it's connected spiritually. And I also wanted to know, in my personal view, I see Native Americans as more spiritually unified than Americans because of, like, the Christianity, you have Baptist, you have Pentecostal. Am I way off? Am I lumping Native Americans in one? Everybody has the same spirituality. I know it's different, but it's more unified, I feel. Am I wrong? And how does it connect to the
I'll have my 2 cents and I'll let Jeff answer too. As Native Americans, now keep in mind there are 583 now federally. 572 recognized tribes across the United States. And that's just in the United States. That's not counting the ones in Canada, Mexico, and our brothers and sisters to South America, as well as in the Caribbean. We do have a pan-Indigenous culture. It comes through the powwow culture. And so we do have a shared spiritual belief system. But as Tim was mentioning, stomp dance. It's more towards the southeast of the woodland tribes. Stomp dance started with Muskogee, came to the Cherokee, came to Choctaw, Chickasaw. It breaks down from there, and then Choctaw, we pray to Gzhadawsot, the Daymaker. I know that some tribes have the Great Mystery and other names for it, but to us, he's the Daymaker. So it varies a little bit, but there is kind of a universal conscious, like, we're not going to pick a fight at a powwow per se, because it's not exactly the way we believe, like, so, anyway, yeah.
The drum is a symbol, a Native American symbol. A lot of people say, without this drum, we wouldn't be here. It is the heartbeat of the people. And I'm honored every time I sit here and sing on it. It's amazing. But it does connect all of us, even though we are from different tribes. It does connect us, and that's in large part, I think, due to the powwows, when you have Indigenous people coming together intertribally, and they share these ideas. So the drum has really been a big part of that, and that connects us all in some form of spirituality to each other. But we all have our own distinct ways as an individual nation as to what we think. And it's most people think of us as a monolithic group, you know, but it's not that way. I've attended ceremonies for Lakotas, for Anishinaabes, for Cherokees, Choctaws, They're all different. I've not run into any one that was the same. And so our spirituality, although we do have some commonalities, for the most part is rooted within the tribal system.
Kind of to add on that, being a dancer, we have intertribal powwows, or international to a lot of people. So our drums are heartbeat. And there's songs, I dance to Northern Ojibwe songs and Cree songs. And then the Muskogees, we have our songs. And then I'm also a member of a Kiowa Taipe Society. It's a warrior society. And I dance with those songs, gourd dancing. And with each one of these, there's so many different facets to learn and so many different, so much history behind each song of why it was written, who gave it to what family passed it on. Same as the song you'll hear at the end of the program here, it was given to the American Indian movement. And it's just there's so much history to the heartbeat of all of our nations right here. Like I said, it's not just one thing. People see somebody with feathers banging on a drum, they think everybody does that one thing. It's way, way deeper than that.
So I get this question quite a lot from people who are not Indigenous, and it's a great question, and everybody wants to find something they can relate to, right? So on the flip side of it, where I've had people say, like the comparison, we have Methodists, Protestants, Catholics, Baptists, whatever, and the commonality with those groups is the Bible consistently, and then you have versions of that. And so there's where some of the arguments begin amongst those factions of spirituality, if you will. With Indigenous people, I've never met another brother or sister in Indigenous culture that argued about the origins of their people. And we've never fought over placement of who's carrying the sacred pipe better or anything of that nature. Now, we don't cross pipes, from my understanding, but at the same time, we respect each other to a profound existence where there's nobody that has a monopoly on what's next in the spiritual world, in our view. And the drum helps bring that together. Now, some nations didn't have a drum. Some people had turtle shakers. Some people used shakers. But that energy is all around us. I don't want to sound like Yoda from Star Wars, but it's that energy is all around us. And it's up to everybody in this audience to tap into that energy. This morning, for example, my spirit guide is the hawk. And one flew over me on the quad this morning. And the young ladies that were out there, they're like, oh, wow, look. And I was like, yeah, man, that's my spirit guide. And I did a call to it, and it came over by us. But it's not to kind of make fun of that. It's just to say, I'm tapped in. I recognize it. To some people, it's just a bird. But to me, it's something more. To this brother, they're more than a tree. Or to all of us, it's more than dirt. We're a part of this dirt. Our ancestors walked on it and are a part of it now. So that energy that is in the spirituality, whether it be the drum, the flute, or any instrument you may play, it's transpired to make us feel connected. And that's kind of where I think religion messes up. It divides us rather than connects us. And that's why we don't use a book or anything. And we're an oral history people. We try to use that energy from our ancestors and communicate that to everybody that we're connected and stay connected. Good question, thank you.
Tom, still got a question?
Yeah, I do. If you could just ask it. Thank you. Appreciate the panel. Can you hear me? So, I want to ask the question about, actually there's two of them. You mentioned in 1978 was when was the gateway that you could speak your language. And so I'm wondering why until 1978. But the real question that I have is the slavery question. And so I was wondering, as you were talking about slavery, was it chattel slavery, supply and demand, or was it the type of slavery just there on the location or participating in the tribe that you're in, or even other tribes, but were you contributing to chattel slavery, or did you just have slaves?
That's a good one, and it's a layered answer. It's not that, well, for instance, with the Cherokee Nation, not every Cherokee held slaves. It was mostly the people who were mixed blood of Native, Cherokee, and white, who were the slave owners. All those, there were full-blood Cherokees that owned slaves too. They did practice chattel slavery, especially among the people who ran the plantations. Of course, that's what they used. But then you had others who were considered, they were slaves, yet they held positions of power that you would think a slave would not have. That was very prominent in the Seminole Nation. You saw that they held very high positions within the tribe. They were used a lot as interpreters. They helped bridge the gap between the Europeans and the Native Americans. So you had different layers and different types of slavery, just as you did in the United States, with the rest of the nation. And so it's for the most part, most of my research shows that it wasn't as bad for people who were the slaves of Native Americans as it was in the European world, but it had its moments. It was a brutal institution, and people were used it to further themselves and their careers, and they exploited people, and just because they were Native or Irish or whatever, it didn't really make that much difference. It all was about the money and power. So even within the Native American nations, but and we have a lot of stuff going on within the Cherokee Nation right now as far as the freedmen are concerned. They just got rights to be considered tribal members again. It was stripped from them. They lost all the services. I know a lot of people personally that lost medical care, housing, things like that. But they were breaking the treaty of 1866 by doing that, and they've rectified that. It went to the Supreme Court, and now all the freedmen and their descendants, and many of those people are Native by descent as well, even though they're not enrolled. They are still Native people by blood. We have a thing that, I don't know if you're familiar with pencil genocide, things like that, where people get marked out. They come to a family and they say, oh, stereotypically he looks black, so we are going to mark him as being Negro or whatever, instead of, even though they may have Native blood. So you have those types of things going on as well. That's a good question.
Thank you.
I hope I,
Fight over the microphone. No, 1978 is pretty much a pivotal year as far as American Native civil rights go. It was kind of the final chapter to the Civil Rights Act as a whole. It was after the Trail of Broken Treaties, where the American Indian movement occupied the BIA in Washington. It was after Alcatraz, and it was after an event that happened 50 years ago this weekend, Wounded Knee Siege of 1973. And so basically, long story short is, I think, me personally speaking, I don't have the books and I'm not a walking Wikipedia, but I think it was just time. They gave us citizenship last. We got our American citizenship on June 2nd, 1924. And we were here first. So And I think by 1978, America had gotten to a point of equal liberty and justice for all actually meant something. And so it wasn't scary to see an Indian singing native songs or dancing by that point. And so we are now freely able to do that without repercussion.
While you're passing it down,
I'm just going to add something fairly quickly. So I was really young when the Freedom of Religion Act went through. And I remember my grandfather was sent to residential school at Sacred Heart in Kansas. He didn't know his language. He would tell me often that he would go to powwows, or to gatherings, but he was never allowed. Only the elders could dance and sing. They wanted it to die out. It was a form of genocide. So by making the younger people not able to learn their language or ceremonies, that sort of thing, the hope was that it would just die out and we'd all assimilate. They were wrong. We're still here. But like just the gathering that we went to this last year, it was a Potawatomi gathering where all the Potawatomi nations get together. And it was really emotional for me because I had my kids there and I was there and I was seeing all these elders dancing and singing and then the tiny tots dancing and learning, and they're speaking their language fluently. I'm like, man, I wish my Mishomis, my grandpa would have been here to see it, to see all of us together, and no one was afraid. So I just wanted to add that in. We're still living it to this day and like almost waking up still from it.
And I think part of it was, to your point, Tom, is why was it in that time? It's just, it's like a lot of laws, kind of like in Tennessee recently, there was a law on, legalized slavery. And these laws kind of get lost in time, and, these things finally surface. And someone's reading through a book, like, what the heck? How is this still possible? And so, with that, someone was probably saying, well, how is this still right that these people cannot practice their ways and speak their own language? And to the sister's point, for us to even speak our language was against the law. We all knew that, but it's the dangerousness of that. Because if you come from a language that is from the earth, like most indigenous cultures around the globe, you can't tell a person who they are. You can't get in their mind and train them to think about who they should be. When people are from a place of true authentic self, you can't control them. So that mental shackle of colonialism was put on so much that people forgot about it. Even the Americans forgot about that rule of law. And so finally it was surfaced. The American Indian Movement, Russell Means, and Dennis Banks, and Peltier and all these guys, they moved, they helped, and Richard Oakes, they helped move people, and the sisters, and the AIM, and all these other people, getting people aware of who they really were, the consciousness. So I just want to have that piece to it.
That's what I was going to say. It happened that time in large part because of AIM. And I'm not sure everyone, Amy, would you like to say something about what AIM is? That might be a good thing.
Okay, totally no pressure on my part. Gosh, with a political and history guru over here too. Okay, that's the expert. So the American Indian Movement was started in Minneapolis in 1968. Head honchos were Dennis Banks, Vernon, and Clyde Belcourt. They were twin brothers. Russell Means, which is my personal hero. He's the crazy ones. Mary Crow Dog, Leonard Crow Dog. Let's see, Carter Camp. There was a bunch. Lou WhiteEagle, who was originally here, or not originally here in Tennessee, but he came to Tennessee and was very, very pivotal in the Nashville area. Yes, he was a Wounded Knee 1973 veteran. He passed on in 2018, and so it's kind of a full circle moment that we're finally here after he finally said, I give you my blessing on starting this. So, but anyway, we're in different factions. There's autonomous groups. There are Grand Governing Council, which is headquartered out of Minneapolis. And then there's Indian Territory, and we are based, I guess headquarters would be a better word, in Anadarko, Lawton area. We are the current generation of AIM Oklahoma, and we keep going on. We say that our organization, the movement, it never dies, it never sleeps. That it was here 7 generations ago and will be here 7 generations from now. I think that kind of sums it up a little bit.
Sums it up very well, thank you. The time has flown away from us. It feels like we've been here for 5 minutes. But it is almost, so I think we have time for maybe one more. Oh my gosh. If y'all are willing to sit here and ask a couple of questions, we'll stay a little bit. So yeah, but I'm going to leave it up to our microphone guru. Well, okay.
Recently, I've been reading a book by an author by the name of Twist, and he makes reference to an international movement of indigenous peoples who had a meeting starting, I think, in the 70s in New Zealand and in other countries later than that, with indigenous peoples from all over the world who had been dominated by European societies were meeting to discuss their culture and their spirituality and whatever, I guess. Do you know if anything like that is still going on? And if not, why not?
That sounds like highest rate.
Well, nationally speaking, it's highest thing. I don't know as much about international, although that's outside my purview.
That sounds very much like Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah, within the U.S., the Rainbow Coalition, which many of you may be familiar with from the 1960s in Chicago, with the Black Panthers and local Native American group there. It wasn't AIM in Chicago. Was it AIM in Chicago? And the Young Patriots, which was young Appalachian white migrants, and the Latino group all came together, right, in Chicago. And one of our friends, Hy Thurman, who was one of the co-founders of the Rainbow Coalition, is still working with it. And there's a new Rainbow Coalition with new versions of all those groups. Internationally, I know that, well, there's a guy named Robert Williams. I signed his books a lot. He wrote The American Indian and the Legal Imagination, or something like that was the title. But he goes regularly and testifies in other countries. He is on the Pima Reservation. I think he's a judge there. But yeah, he regularly goes, and his goal is that very thing. He's been working on it. I don't know where they've gotten, but as of a few years ago, sort of trying to get an international consortium that might lead towards some changes in U.S. law, because if you're not aware, you know, in the Declaration of Independence, when it talks about the savagery of the Indians, and even in the Constitution and later Supreme Court cases that ruled that they were domestic dependent nations, all that stuff from 200 years ago is the basis of law still dealing with with tribal nations. And so the goal is hopefully that indigenous movement would give some credence to make some changes there, but I'm not sure how it's going. Anybody have anything to add?
I was just going to say from, 2016, maybe a little Standing Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Standing Rock in North Dakota, that was a big opponent to push forth and more indigenous. We had lots of people from all over the world come to Standing Rock. And, you know, from even down from New Zealand, people came from New Zealand, Australia, parts of China, from all over to Standing Rock. And that was a lot of evidence that I always go to the Hopi prophecy that the indigenous people will lead a rainbow tribe of people and get Mother Earth back in balance. So to the book you're reading, I think that moment in time, not too long ago, at Standing Rock was a big indicator for a lot of people that there is this movement, and it's going to happen, and it needs to happen quicker, but it's just something that's in the works. So.
And it's currently happening in northern Minnesota with Winona LaDuke and the water fighters up there.
Yep.
The water protectors.
Yes. Another question was over here. Yeah.
I had a question. A number of years ago, we adopted here in the Backdoor Playhouse
a land acknowledgement that is done before every production that we do here at the Playhouse. I was inspired to do it. I worked at a theater up in Calgary, Canada. All the theaters in Canada do a land acknowledgement before everything that happens in the theater, and I thought it was a beautiful thing. I reached out to Troy Smith because I wanted to make sure the language was correct. He made some suggestions. But I've noticed with theaters, there's some question, there's been some pushback as it's just an example of liberal white guilt. And, so I guess what I'm saying is it okay that we do a land acknowledgement before all of our plays? I think it's a beautiful thing. We've never gotten any complaints about it. I've gotten some positive feedback from people. Just kind of wanted to know if it was okay.
As I said earlier, I'm a drummer, singer, so it puts me in contact with a lot of different people. And I've had to be around people from New Zealand, the Maoris, the Indigenous people from Australia, all different nations from not just America, but from South America, overseas, all of that. So it is very common when people come, like say if they're coming to Tennessee, that they ask for permission from the people who originally owned that land or lived on that land. So inevitably, whenever people come into Tennessee, we usually get called on, depending on where they're going. But if they come into the Middle Tennessee area, we usually get called on for them to acknowledge us as being the original inhabitants of the land. So I don't see personally anything wrong with that acknowledgement coming at the theater level. It's just extending what we do as a people anyway. You tell where you're from and you ask permission to come into that land. So
that's something all tribes have kind of done.
Mm-hmm.
Like even other bands, when we come onto their land or whatever, we're like, hey, we're so-and-so, is it okay if we enter? So it's just kind of something that's done. I would only say, I love that you do land acknowledgements. Just maybe back it up with more action, maybe amplifying voices, that sort of thing, but I think it's wonderful, in my opinion. Thanks for
Have you spoke to anyone from the nations who you're acknowledging the land from?
I have not. There's a bunch of them right here.
That would be a direction to go. Get with the heads or elders and
I touched base with Troy because I knew that he would send me in the right direction.
Yeah, because most elders and stuff, because like the Muskogee, the chief sent down a representative at a powwow went to over in Cumberland powwow, and they did a land acknowledgement, and we reached out and was like, hey, and they're like, okay, yeah, they'll usually send somebody proudly from that nation and read off something and make a beautiful event out of it.
Great. Okay.
I had a question. What can non-native people do to support native people?
Great question. I don't want to stage this first, but I think speaking out immediately when you see an injustice for anybody, not just Indigenous people. I want to put it out there because it takes practice when you see injustice done, and the quote, the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an injustice to one is an injustice to all, right? So that will help out Indigenous people a lot, because a lot of what's happening to American citizens now has already happened to Indigenous people. And if you tolerate it with people of everyday walks of life now, you're definitely not going to think twice about anything happening to Indigenous people. And so, I was adopted at birth, and my mother who raised me was white, and my father was black. Some of you may know that already. But for me, in my lens, my mother gave me this pretext of what white people should be, because I grew up with her my whole life. And she was a fiery Scot-Irish woman. And she didn't put up with no mess. And she married a black man to top it off. She was that strong of a person and saw better and wanted better. And so whenever I saw her, a lot of people would say racist stuff around her and not realize she was married to a black man, and she'd stop it right there. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. You knew what you were doing. Calling it out at the time of that occurrence. It's hard. I get it. A lot of people don't like confrontation. But you're going to have to do those things to make a difference. Now, with Indigenous people, we would have loved that 500 years ago. But that's okay. I'm not blaming anybody in this audience. I'm not blaming any person, even in the future, because it's, you know, it is difficult to speak out when you see something that's like so egregiously bad. But if you overhear it, then I put you guys all accountable for that, because ultimately, you're going to have to live with yourself. And I've had so many people say, man, Sayota, I wish I would have done this. I'm going to give you a confession. I saw this happening. Or they'll tell me something. I'm like, yeah, man. Well, tomorrow's a new day. You have a chance to make it better, right? So I'm going to put that out there as my answer to the question. Good question.
So one thing that is, one thing that parents, aunties, uncles can do is try to explain to your child and give them a basis of respect for everyone. Racism doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from normally the parent. It's, especially with young children, they're just repeating what they hear their parents say. So if you try to be a respectful and caring person, your child will, and child and kids around you will also repeat that to people around them. So if you're respectful,
All right, we have a couple of things that we're going to do to close out. So we'll have to put an abeyance to the questions, but we'll all be around for a few minutes afterwards. Spike, all right, can you be succinct? D'accord.
Some of us want to be respectful. Not all of us have a Cherokee, Narragansett, or Wampanoag ancestor. Could you please give us an example or two of what is the most respectful thing we can say, and what is the most offensive thing we can say? Ooh.
I know, I'm going to go ahead and
I'm going to let Sayota cook up some answers. But as a general rule, we are called the American Indian Movement. We predate the term Native American. Native American popped up around the mid to late 70s. People call it wokeism in Tennessee. I call it being decent humans. And the problem with the term Native American is everybody in this building that was born in the United States are Native Americans. I don't have a problem being called an American Indian. In 1491, when Cristobal Colombo, his actual name, sailed off with 3 boatloads of convicts, he was going to Japan. Hindustan is what we call India since 1947. So there's a lot of people who, I don't want to say get it twisted, it's just they don't know any better, so they think that Indians are in India, when at the point it was Hindustan. He landed in what is now known as Haiti, and he was, according to his journals at first, before he got mean, demented, and I'll leave it there, he called us bendigos de Indios, blessings of God, because of the hospitality. And I would imagine when you've got 3 boatloads of scurvy, nastiness. You see these beautiful people in a beautiful paradise giving you all the fruits and all the needs, and here's some housing. Yeah, we're blessings of God. So Indios or Indian is not an offensive term to me personally. Now, I don't speak for the 4.5 some million enrolled Native Americans who call this town or 50 states home. But that's me personally. So
I would rather not be called Indian, but that is just me. And it's not offensive to me though. Like, it's whatever. It's not offensive. It's very neutral. It's very respectful to me if you know my nation and you introduce me or talk to me as that nation. Oh, you're Potawatomi or you're Anishinaabe. Instead of you're Indian or American Indian or Native American. Then I'm like really impressed and I'm gonna listen to what you have to say. There's so many disrespectful things, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even, probably Redskin is the one that really gets my goat. But yeah, if you just see us, if you mention our nation, it means you're paying attention and that you see me. And you have my full attention after that.
Yeah, I agree. Calling by the nation is the best thing if you know it. But amongst ourselves, in a conversation, I may say Indian, Native American, Indigenous. I may use any of those terms interchangeably. And it's no disrespect. It's not seen as being disrespectful. I think a lot of it is the context in which you say things that will make the difference. As far as the bad things, there are so many, like she said, Redskins. I know for me personally, in Oklahoma, I've had people say this to me several times, but they will, when they are wanting to really hurt you, they will call you and excuse me, but they will call you a timber nigger. And that means, that's especially pointing towards people of Black and Indian ancestry, because you run around in the woods, but you're still Black, so that's where that term comes from. And I've heard quite a few people use that word during my lifetime, so that would be one of the worst things somebody could say to me as an individual.
Yeah, adding to that, I've had cousins and stuff sitting around and somebody referred that and they got adjusted abruptly. I'm a big happy guy, but I'm also 6'4", 200 plus pounds, and I throw logs around for a living. Yeah, it's like, it's all contextual. Like if we're all sitting around, we're talking about Indian folks, blah, 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 blah. Somebody else will walk up into our circle and be like, what are you Indians up to? And it's just like, yeah, goes the record. It's like, on the Reds, go back home and stuff, yeah, there's a lot of nicknames and stuff like that that we use that, his name it is called Indian folks. But it's like, it's nothing, we don't use any of the derogatory terms. Like even my Native brothers and sisters, if they use something like that, you'd have an uncle and aunt stand up really quick and get really far up in them and be like, not on my watch. I'm one of those uncles. And it's just like, my family, it's like, as an uncle, you have a role to take care of our children, to take care, to teach, to help, to get to be that person that puts a thumb on somebody whenever they step outside that boundary, or to help teach them. Because first I'm going to come at you, hey, that's not the best thing to say. If you laugh at me and say, well, I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit. And if that doesn't work, it's going to get really hot in that oven. And I know many, many other aunts and uncles that will do the exact same thing. Main thing, ask. Where do you want to be called? Don't say, what are you? That's another one that makes the butt pucker.
What about the Chief fans that do their little chop and wear their outfits and
Great question. So, I'll address both of them at the same time. Personally, I want to have everyone here, get rid of the shackles of colonialism. And part of that is, just us looking at each other as human beings first and foremost. And so, ultimately, I'd never walk up to any European American and say anything like offensive about their, although there's a song by Shania Twain, right? And it's Redneck Woman. I would never walk up to any white lady like, what's up? Just that would never come out of my mouth, right? But that's obvious. That's obvious. So it's insulting. So I've been encountered with lots of phrases said to me in my places of employment here all across Cookville. And, from being called a chief, and I've had people come, hey, chief, how you doing? I'm like, ho, hey, how are you doing? You don't even know me. And that is because of, some of the, obviously, stereotypes from TV and or books, romanticized Western books, to all these other things. Now, knowing the origins of these words, thus breaking the shackles of colonialism, you'd understand that chief is a French word. And these words were used by Europeans to help identify what leaders of the people. We don't, like in the Apache way, we don't call each other chiefs, this is not done. And so we would refer to each other as that, right? And so, but how would you know that? You wouldn't know that. So you'd have to ask, right? And so recognizing, like the sister said, recognizing us and asking those questions, and everyone's curious. Even the children that I speak to when I go to schools, they have the best questions, by the way. And everyone here has an understanding, we want to learn, I think, because that's a great capacity of who we are as human beings for the greater spirit of everybody. We're not going to know everything, but to know and empower yourself for the betterment is where, so to be offensive, I don't like the term Indian. But that doesn't mean that my way of thinking has to be imposed on everybody. I would wish everybody would stop using it. But that's, I'm a history guy. I'd like for people to be more historically accurate. I think communication-wise it would help understanding of wondering, well, is it, is this type of, because I've had people say that to me, are you a dot Indian or are you a feather Indian? And that's very offensive. And I'm like, wow, okay, I'm Indigenous, Native American, I'm Apache, I'm in Bay. And like, well, I didn't mean that. I'm like, no, you didn't know, I guess. But I'm going to leave it there. And I just try to use these opportunities to help educate people and bring it to a level where I don't put blame on them solely, because I don't want to lose them. And that's my piece in it, to the question, what can we do? And that's call it out right when it happens. Now with the Kansas City being in the Super Bowl recently, and using that was a form of spirituality for their team, right? Hence they're using the spirituality that was adopted by the Milwaukee Braves back in the '60s, and Levi Walker was a Chippewa Indigenous person who happened to walk up on a baseball game and saw a white guy dressed up in fake regalia running on the field trying to act Indigenous, and he thought to himself, and he was, in my opinion, had the shackles of colonialism, hey, if somebody's going to do it, and to quote him, he's like, you wouldn't have some guy just serving drinks in a bar, you'd want a real bartender. That's how he equated this. He goes, I want to have a real Indian representing Indigenous or Indigenous people there. And so he played the part. And a lot of these Indigenous people don't realize the harm they're even being or playing the part of by furthering these stereotypes and problems. So the Atlanta Braves, then moved from Milwaukee, adopted this thing called the tomahawk chop. The problem, the offense of that is that it's a form of violence directed towards your opponent, your enemy. And sports are violent by nature, right? We can all agree, after watching the Buffalo Bills and the guy got hit and he almost died in the field, that's a violent action, although, he didn't die. And there's something to say about that, where we as a society celebrate violence through sports, and we're okay with that. And we don't talk about our problems and work them out together and create dialogue. where with the tomahawk chop and all this stuff, it totally negates any conversation. And I've had to tell my kids that's not how Indigenous people are. We don't get face paint and put on these fake regalias. And you know, it's harmful to see people out there with beer in their hand. It already enforces that stereotype of Indigenous people being alcoholic, as it is, you know, epidemically. So those things, you know, are offensive. And although they may seem as harmless as anything, it's furthering these violent gestures that have been going on for centuries to Indigenous people. Great question.
Kent, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Okay, well, that was a perfect question to end on, and it was worth staying over for. So thank you for that. Doreen, we are going to do a couple of things. We're going to put the screen down, and we are going to show a trailer. Take a couple of minutes for a new documentary that you might find interesting on some of these topics. And then after that, you're going to get to hear the AIM song. So stick around for just a few more minutes.
Racism is racism, and you can't have, it's like being a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. It's either racist or it's not.
Touchdown, Redskins.
That to me is not honoring somebody, that to me is demeaning.
It is utterly unidimensional. They're warriors, they're braves in breech claws, rather than Native peoples as they were even then, and certainly are now.
We have suffered at the hands of a federal government who essentially wanted to annihilate every single one of us.
And if it was any other race or people, nobody would stand for it.
We are people first, not redskins. We are not scalps, we are not chiefs, we're not squaws.
It's up to Native peoples to own their own images, to own their own words, and to be able to own their own feelings.
We have a voice now.
We're done having people not hear us. And I think we're done playing nice. We're not going to stop.
There's teams across school districts that still need to make a change.
This is still an issue.